You see the rockets, the cars, the social media platform, but what if they aren't separate things at all? What if they're all just pieces of one single, unified vision? Today, we're going to try and decode Elon Musk's grand theory of everything, and we'll use his own words to connect all the dots.
Okay, so where do we even begin? Let's start with the one question that really unlocks this whole puzzle. What is he actually trying to do here? What's the end game for all these projects that seem so disconnected?
And here's the thing. The answer is way deeper and more philosophical than you might think. This goes so far beyond just engineering and business. It actually gets into the fundamental nature of consciousness and, well, reality itself.
Right, so to really get this, we've got to piece it all together into a single theory of everything, a way to see how X, Tesla, AI, and SpaceX all link up into one single mission. So let's build it, layer by fascinating layer.
Okay, let's start with layer 1. And it's probably the most familiar piece of the puzzle, the platform X. But to really understand its role, you have to stop thinking of it as just another social media app. It's designed to be something much bigger than that.
So the way Musk sees it, X is this tool for building what he calls a collective consciousness. And he uses this really powerful analogy. Think about how trillions of your own individual cells all work together to form you, a single, complex human being. The idea is that connecting all of humanity's thoughts in real time could create a totally new, higher level of global awareness.
And look, this isn't us just reading between the lines. He said it himself. He describes the core purpose of X, not as, getting likes or selling ads, but as this grand project to weave humanity together into a single thinking entity.
And you can actually see the pieces being put in place to make this happen. It's not just a town square for text anymore. It's becoming a hub for every kind of media. They're integrating secure calls to help people connect directly, and this is a huge one. Automatic translation to tear down language barriers, letting ideas from every single culture flow into this one global network. Okay, but why? What's the point of all this? Why even build a collective consciousness? Well, Musk's answer to that is the key that unlocks the whole next layer of his vision. See, it's not just about connecting for the sake of connection. It's a tool to help us understand the universe. But to do that, humanity has to be freed from something pretty fundamental. And that question takes us to the next massive piece of this puzzle. What kind of world will this new consciousness even live in? Well, it's a world where the basic rules of our economy have been totally turned upside down. And he has this one prediction that just makes it all feel real. Musk genuinely believes that in less than 20 years, the whole concept of having to get a job will just go away. Work will become something you choose to do, like a hobby, not something you have to do to survive. I mean, just think about the scale of this change he's talking about. We're going from a world that's completely defined by mandatory jobs and not enough of anything to go around, to a future where work is optional, there's a total abundance of everything, and eventually, money itself just isn't necessary anymore.
So what's the engine behind all this? No surprise here, AI and robotics. He sees them moving so fast that they're going to create what's called a post-scarcity economy. A world where the production of goods and services is so ridiculously massive that, as he puts it, if you can think of it, you can have it.
All right, so this is where we get to the real core of it all. The philosophical why behind everything. Why create a collective human consciousness? Why create a world with no jobs and total abundance? Well, according to Musk, it's all to help us answer one single ultimate question.
This is it. This is the one question he says kicked off this entire journey for him when he was just a kid. It was never about building companies. It was about creating the tools that humanity needs to even begin to properly ask, what is the meaning of our existence?
And you know where he got this idea from? A bit of a surprise, actually. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Right, so in the book, a giant supercomputer figures out the answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42, but nobody actually knows what the original question was. For Musk, that was a huge moment. The universe is the answer. Our problem, the really hard part, is figuring out what questions we should even be asking about it. Okay, so now you can see how it all clicks into place. You take a global, collective consciousness, free it from the daily grind of work, in a world of total abundance, and what do you have? You have a giant thinking machine. And its entire purpose is to help humanity finally learn how to ask better, deeper, more meaningful questions about the very nature of reality. And that brings us to the final layer. And honestly, this is where things get really wild. If the whole goal is to ask better questions about reality, what's Musk's own working theory about what our reality actually is?
You know, when someone asked him straight up what the probability is that we're living in a simulation, his answer was simple: pretty high. He takes this idea really seriously, not as science fiction, but as a logical conclusion based on a pretty clear argument.
So here's the logic. Let's just walk through it step by step. First, you have the evolution. Just think, video games went from super simple Pong to these incredibly photorealistic worlds in only 50 years. That's a mind-blowing jump in realism. Now, just assume that trajectory of advancement keeps going. Eventually, you get to a point where games are completely indistinguishable from what we call reality. So that leads to the final conclusion. What are the actual odds that we're in the one original base reality and not one of the billions of simulations that came after it?
But wait, there's another twist to this theory, and it's fascinating. He says if we are in a simulation, then it follows that the most interesting outcome is also the most likely outcome. But why would that be?
The way he explains it, it's almost like a Darwinian survival of the fittest for realities. He points out that when we run simulations, like at SpaceX for rocket flights or Tesla for self-driving, we throw away the boring, predictable ones. We're always looking for the interesting stuff, the unexpected results. So by that logic, any simulation that's just boring would eventually get shut down. Only the most interesting ones would survive and be allowed to keep running.
Which leaves us with one last kind of mind-blowing question to chew on. If a collective human consciousness is about to be born into a world of total abundance, so it can question the nature of its simulated reality, and if the most interesting outcome is always the most likely one, what in the world happens next?